Stan Mallow. Welcome to Paranormal Yacker. My guest on today's show, who I'll be yakking with, is Ted Silverhand. Ted is a Tuscarora seer. His wisdom and guidance has helped many people over the years. This includes celebrities such as the late and great Elvis Presley. Ted Silverhand, welcome to Paranormal Yacker.
Thank you. It's good to be here, and welcome to the show. Thank you so much.
It's great. We go back, as you know, many years.
Yes.
And I have to say, you are one of those people who I may not see as often as I'd like to, but when we do get together, it's like no time has passed. We just continue from where we left off the last time we met. Now, as I stated in my introduction, you are a Tuscarora seer.
Yeah.
Could you tell us about the Tuscarora people, their history, their traditions, their belief system?
The Tuscaroras, we are the hemp growers used to be, and in the old days, and in doing so, we lived in upstate New York, Canada, and also in North Carolina, and where that we left New York State back 1,000 years ago and moved south. But in 1712, we were chased out of North Carolina back, and so we had to find our way back to New York State. And where we got into the areas of the Five Finger Lake area, and we went entered into the land of the Seneca. And the farmers there, the white settlers there, chased us out of there and took the land from us. Some made it into Canada. Others we ended up over in the areas of outside of Buffalo to the original the reserve that's up here now on the other side of Buffalo. And so some still in New York, in Canada, the other over in the areas of outside of Buffalo, and also the others are down in the areas of not Hollister, but North Carolina, Tuscarora in North Carolina. In that area, it's called Drowning Creek Reservation is part of it. And so we've had a lot of ups and downs along the way. But as they said, we were the hemp growers in the old days, and we grew hemp and things of that back in those days, yeah.
When did you first realize, become aware that you were indeed a seer, that you had been blessed with special gifts and spiritual insights that enabled you to help people and answer questions they may have about their dreams, visions, the future?
Well, my mother is what we call was a teller, and they're called seers or tellers. And my mother was a teller, and so is my grandmother. That name of coming in as a seer, uh, I never called myself a seer. This is what other people said I was in growing up. But around 12 years old is when I took my first 25 cents. That was my gift. But then my family refused to allow me to do anything because I didn't know enough until I was around 23 years old before I started with listening to the elders and all around and talking to others, asking questions from my grandmother, my mother, my father, and and understanding the dreams and what the dreams are about and all of that. It wasn't instant knowledge, because we're all students of life on this earth, and I had to learn and my father not only taught me and my mother and my brother and my sister, but it was three of us. And but it started at the age of technically 12, but then I traveled so much as a young child because I lived in Colorado, Denver. As a little boy, I was living at the Jewish National Home for Asthmatic Children out in Denver, Colorado. I was there for 3.5 years. Then I moved to a place called St. Elmo's. It was the Indian school for boys. And then I went away to school after the 5 years there. And so I've been all over, and I always felt that it was God's way of putting me to meet all peoples, all different types of people. So I didn't see it to be a punishment. I saw it to be still acquiring knowledge that I needed. And then in time, meeting with Rolling Thunder and living with Rolling Thunder and traveling with Rolling Thunder, talking, listening to him. And he also was seeking wisdom as well. But I learned from so many. It's like I'm said that someone says, gee, Ted, you're famous. No, I worked for famous people. Like everybody that I work for, I read for, I say they are famous. Yeah.
How did you develop your gifts? Did you have mentors or guides who showed you the way? And if you did, what guidance, advice did they bestow on you?
Dream time was very important. And at the age of about 6, 7 years old, they started coming into the dream time. And then there was a woman named Bidabin. She came through the dream time, came into the room where in bed, and into the room she talked to me. And then she got, and all I could see was a shadow. And she leaned in to speak with me. Then later, 3 nights later, she came and she took me on a journey into the dream time. And I was to meet this council. I didn't know what she was talking about. And it was a lot of, when I said the council of elders, but as she was pulling me on this dirt road in the dream time, I mean, when I say pulling me down as a little boy, make haste, I called her Bibi because I could not pronounce Bidabin until later I understood Bidabin, which means first light. That was her name. And then I went to this particular circle, and when I sat down, when she told me to sit down, and I sat down, and when I looked up, there were 13 elders, old men, in the circle. She was the woman, and she stood by a water jug, and which she represented. Later, I found out she was of the women's circle, which are the women are the water bearers, and so one began to speak. Each of them was sitting on a little table, and you would turn and you look at each of their eyes, and they spoke with their eyes. And the spokesperson was Tall Pine, and he spoke and he told me. And of course, I was so sickly as a child. All I wanted to know, were you going to make me well? And time that will come about, but you have to learn to suffer, to understand. And of course, over the years and years, and in going back to the council, it was twice a week or whatever, and I would just sit in the circle and not understand it, but I knew I was there for some reason. And when I would come back and wake up in the morning, and I would talk to my mom and my dad and everything, at first they didn't quite understand it. But then they began to say, this is not the discipline. They never said the boy was crazy. They just said they start understanding because certain things were being said and was way over my head. But in time, and then my grandmother started talking, and then she spoke of this. And so this is how things began to come together. Wow. And so I called them the Grand Council, my Grand Council. And they come in now, but sometimes they will channel in if they have something key to say, they will speak through me. But yet it's usually Tall Pine that would come in, and at times people have been able to hear in the recordings and things of that, of how I step out, he will step in, and through the areas of the council, they would channel information to that particular individual that's listening, that for whatever it is.
Mm-hmm. Well, you should take
born with some of these extrasensory gifts, as we call them? Or what if, due to an event such as a near-death experience, an individual is granted ESP, as most of us may see it. What if these gifts included seeing ghosts or spirits and the ability to see into the future? Would this be considered a gift or a curse to the individuals with these particular gifts? We welcome Ted Silverhand, an Indian seer, on the show today to discuss spiritual enlightenment. Hello, Ted Silverhand. Welcome to the show.
Oh, it's good to hear from you again, Joe, and I hope this is going to be a good time.
Yeah, I think it will. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I've been in this business a long time. When I was a small child, I died 3 times at a very early age because of asthma.
I see.
A rough time on my first few years on the earth. And through those 3 deaths, different things began to happen around the age of about, I would say, 7, 8, 9 years old, around that time, that I started getting visits in my room as a small kid and by a particular person. And I did not understand who she was, but eventually I understood the word Bedabin, and that was her name. And later I found out that her name meant first light. And that was the time that she entered and took me on my first journey. And that journey has been a continuing journey, but it has sort of changed over the years. And I am saying this because the first time I felt paralyzed when she came in the room, I couldn't move. And I would say that was about 7, 8 years old. And when and she sat down on the side of the bed, you could feel the bed go down, and she said some things which I couldn't understand except that she would be back. And then she got up and walked through the wall. And that was the start of my journey and being introduced to my spirit guides, my life protectors. And we have been a group for many, many years. I call them the council.
I see.
And in the council, when I did meet them, I was, like I said, I was around 7, 8 years old, and then when I went into this circle and sat down and turned around, each of these old men looked into my eyes. I've told this story so many times. And they did not talk with their mouths, they talked with their eyes.
That was my next question. I didn't know if it was a telepathy thing, but this is the first time I've actually heard somebody say that they talk through their eyes.
They talked with their eyes, and they told me things and the lessons, but so much, I was so young, so much of it went over my head. And I remember one question I asked, could they make me well? And they said, I had to suffer at this time to understand the things that I would come to do in helping others. But one day I would be well.
I see.
Not at this particular time. I still had a lot of lessons and, of course, continuous lessons, but things being shown that would take me in different parts of the country. And that was where it all began. And it's just, I don't want to take up all of your time of details because my wife says I have a tendency to my stories get longer and longer. But I know that at that time I began to understand and